I'm going to show you how anyone, yes, anyone, can solo flawless the new Duality Dungeon in Destiny 2. This is a great dungeon and it just released here in the last couple of weeks. And the great part is you don't have to be a Glad, you don't have to be an Esoterickk, and you don't have to be a Saltagreppo to solo flawless this dungeon. This guide is for anyone looking to get into solo flawless challenges. I go over every encounter. It's easy to follow and it's all accessible gear. Many of the guides that I have seen feature prominently trials and raid loot and weapons that are not available anymore. Do you need those weapons to solo flawless this dungeon? Nope. In fact, I've made this guide specifically with no raid weapons. All the gear is currently available and any player who plays Destiny can acquire those weapons needed for this at the making of this video. So let's show you how to solo flawless the Duality Dungeon in the easiest way possible. I mean that anybody can do this. So first of all, I'm going to be going over only the main encounters for this solo flawless guide. If you need to go over the main ideas of the dungeon, plus all the secret chests, all the other different triumphs and stuff inside of it, check out my guide that's in the top right-hand side now. All right, let's show you the class build guide. We're going to be using a Sunbreaker on the Hammer of Soul Super, and we're going to be using the Throwing Hammer as the Solar Melee. This is very important because it's going to be one of the things that we use to do massive damage on the bosses. We're going to be using the Rally Barricade instead of the Towering Barricade because the base cooldown is actually 8 seconds lower and you'll get all the functionality that you need out of it. If you want to, you can use any of the damaging grenades that you want. However, I'm going to be using the Healing Grenade. This is a solo flawless guide where survivability is more important than damage. More importantly, this gives you restoration and cure, which is very, very important with this build. Next up, let's talk aspects and fragments. We've got Roaring Flames, where final blows with solar abilities or ignitions increase the damage of your solo abilities, and it stacks 3 times. With the hammer, this thing is going to be nasty. Most importantly, we're going to be using Soul Invictus as our other solar aspect. Solar ability final blows, Hammer of Soul impacts, and defeating scorched targets create sunspots. Those sunspots are going to be critical to staying alive. When you enter a sunspot, it applies restoration, which is going to be absolutely huge. Next up, we're going to be using the Ember of Torches, which will allow us to use powered melee attacks against combatants, and it makes us radiant, which is going to pair very well with the Ember of Solace. Radiant and restoration effects applied do have increased duration. This is going to help us stay alive pretty much through the entire dungeon. This is a huge fragment and you need to have this. Next up, this is kind of an optional fragment if you want to use this. Solar Weapon Final Blows grant you and your abilities increased recovery for a short duration and it stacks 3 times. Finally, I'm going to be using the Ember of Ashes where you apply more scorch stacks to targets, which will be very important in the build. For your armor stats, it's not really super important, but if you can get to the highest resilience as possible and high recovery, it is helpful, but it is not required. I actually did my solo run with 70 resilience. All right, with that, let's talk about Gahlran, the Nightmare of Calus, and the first encounter. Let's show the weapon loadouts that you're going to need. You're going to need a sniper rifle of any kind, a glaive, which everyone should have if you've played Witch Queen, a tractor cannon, and the Syntheseps exotic arm piece. An auto-loading or reconstruction rule would be best on this, but overflow also works as a poor man's reconstruction because you're going to be running over a lot of ammo and it basically reloads it free for you. Next up, you just need to be holding a glaive. There is a mod in the artifact which allows you to get double the duration of the Unstable Essence buff. That's going to be a 1.8 times buff to all damage that you output when you pick up an object dropped by a nightmare, and the Gahlran boss is a nightmare and will be dropping those. Pair that with the tractor cannon, which will suppress the enemies, and the throwing hammer, and you'll be able to do a massive amount of damage when you get Roaring Flames times 3. We're going to show you how that works. As always, these are all suggestions and not required, but they help a ton. You definitely need to have Syntheseps to buff your melee range and also buffing your damage. All right, let's talk mods. There's a couple of different mods that you should look and have, especially this Armor of the Dying Star, which is damage resist for solar and void. You can always slap on an arc piece as well. After that, if you can get a high energy fire mod somewhere on your character, as well as melee Wellmaker and elemental charge, you're going to be throwing your hammer a lot during this, and this will help you to create lots of wells. After that, shotgun scavenger is okay, but melee Wellmaker is going to be very solid, and we're going to use that throughout the entire dungeon. Now, are any of these mods required? Again, no, but they help significantly. Next up in your artifact that everyone can get, you should be able to get a thing called Classy Restoration and put that on your class item. All right, here's the game space. Here's a great map that someone put together from Reddit. I'll link that original Reddit post down in the description box below from Mrs. Asphyxia. But here's a great map that you can use. Basically, what you need to do is you need to go get the flags. They're called standards. You go into the Nightmare Realm and you look for the scions that are going to be called standard bearers. For this technique, what you're going to do is kill both of the standard bearers. But we're going to do a trick where we extend the damage phase, which will help you out quite a bit. Knock out the Bellkeepers so you can get back to the normal realm. Go find the other scion, but at this point, do not pick up the standard that is here. You'll see me kill the dogs and kill this scion here. Do not pick up the standard. We're going to show you how this extends the damage phase, which will help you out a ton, as well as potentially help you do a one phase. Once you've got that single flag, head back to the normal area, deposit it, kill the berserkers, and then kill the Colossus. Head into this room in here and then use your sniper rifle to shoot the bell that you've cleared once you've gotten those Bellkeepers. Now you'll see all these nightmares. You're going to use your hammer and bonk the Gahlrans. Now on this first phase, you're just pretty much practicing for the next part, which is going to be the part that precedes the damage phase. At this point, we're going to knock out the Bellkeepers, and then we're going to do this trick to extend the damage phase, which will help out quite a bit. Now go grab the second standard. You will see that in the room you were before, you killed the scion, but you didn't pick up the standard. There's going to be a scion in there. Do not kill the scion, but do pick up the standard and then head back to the normal realm. We're basically going to trick the game into giving us an extra scion that we can kill that will allow us to have extra time. Kill the Bellkeepers and then deposit the final flag. Kill all the enemies as well as the Colossus and then get ready for damage. At this point, shoot the bell and then head into the Nightmare Realm. We're right before the damage phase, and you will notice that there is a scion in that room that shouldn't usually be there. Once you kill him, you'll get an extra 15 seconds of time. You'll see I went from 54 seconds to over a minute of damage. What you're going to do now is finish all of the Vision of Gahlrans and then make sure you pick up their unstable essences, and you will see that now you have 30 seconds of unstable essence because you're wearing that mod. If you want to play it safe, kill the Bellkeepers at this point, but we're going to go for a one phase here. You're going to tractor cannon the boss and then just keep hitting him with hammers. You'll see I do a ton because I keep roaring flames at ×3. I tractor every 6 or 7 hammers, and whenever I need to keep that roaring flames buff back up, I just attack one of the other enemies, and then I'm able to continue doing massive damage to Gahlran. You'll want to do as much damage as you possibly can as it starts to get lower when you lose the unstable essence buff. You can see here, I still have a lot of damage here, 154,000. If you don't want to chance it, just go back. Going for a one phase is optional. Just make sure you kill the Bellkeepers and you rotate to the bell if you so choose. The second encounter is more about your movement skill, and I call it the boss barrage. Basically, you're doing the first encounter, but you're doing it again and better. So let's show you the kit for this. It's exactly the same, except that you put on ammo finders for swords and scavengers for swords instead of for shotguns. Also, we take our unstable mod and we change it to grenade launcher loader. Again, this is not required, but it will help out specifically with this build that you're using, and it will make it very, very easy. Basically, the number one thing that I've found that ruins runs in this encounter are the shield enemies here. Even when you're in your super, they can kill you very easily if you are not paying attention. So the best way to deal with them is a wave frame launcher. Not only can you deal with them even if they have their shields up, but you can kill them and other enemies in one fell swoop. Watch this shot right here. In 1 second, I've killed almost all of the shielded enemies. Now, some people recommend using Arbalist, but Arbalist is slow and you have a chance of missing, but it is an option for those people who like that. But for our exotic for this build, we're going to be using Rat King. The reason we're using it is because when you reload after a kill, you get invisibility, and if you have the masterwork, you'll also get health. Plus, the seasonal mod has an anti-barrier mod for sidearms, so if it ever gets fixed with the anti-barrier piercing sidearm mod, you'll be able to use those on the shielded enemies as well. Next up for our heavy weapon, you're going to want any sword in my opinion, that has Eager Edge. We're going to use that for a little bit of sword skating, nothing too complex. And if you don't have one of those, use any other sword that you so choose. Just don't use them on the Cabal shields. Use that wave frame grenade launcher. And you don't have to use explosive personality, but that one is the one that is available from the previous season that you can farm. All right, let's show you how this works. We're going to find the symbols that are on the floor here in the second encounter, and we're going to go into the Nightmare Realm and go get them. The only challenge now is that you read the symbols and you can't always tell exactly where you are because the symbols are hidden behind these barricades here around the map. I repurposed one of Mrs. Asphyxia's map here, and you just need to know that there is a dog statue in the normal realm, a Calus statue in the Nightmare Realm. The stairs are on the opposite sides. If you get lost, look for the decorations that are in the room. You can see that there are axes in one, cup in the other. The room has those different decorations that show you which room that you're in. If you get lost, just go back to that map and pause it. But what we're going to do next is we're going to free the bell by killing all the bell keepers underneath the bells on the other sides. Once you know which direction you want to go, kill the beam defenders so you can go to the other realm and then hit the bell. At this point, go to the area where you want to pick up a standard and start killing all of the enemies. Once you've done that and you kill the Cabal Colossus in the middle, what will happen is a standard bearer will appear plus a bunch of dogs. Use your shield here to block the dogs from coming up and chomping your ankles. Grab the standard essence, and if you want to, shoot one of the dogs to go invisible, or Eager Edge swipe just a little bit to go a little farther on the map a little bit faster. Now at this point, now that I have extra time, I need to find the bell keepers. They will be on the opposite side of the bell that you used. So if you use the staircase side, they'll be on the statue side where the Calus head is or the dog statue is. If you didn't use the stair side, they'll be on the opposite side, but they'll be underneath. Just try to keep track of that where you're at. And again, use the map as a reference. I always try to shoot the bell that is closest so that I know that I need to go to the far side to kill the bell keepers and then move on. Come back into the normal realm and deposit a flag. You'll need to go get 2 flags, and then one of the 3 mini bosses will become vulnerable. Here's a couple of extra tips and tricks that I found to be useful. The number one thing I died to, other than the Cabal shields, are these backpacks. They are the bane of this dungeon. Blow them up from a distance, and then use your Rat King to kill other enemies to go invisible and to get your health back. I've seen many posts on Reddit about how many times people have died to the architects. They have no idea what's going on. 9 times out of 10, it's those backpacks there that are blowing up, whether an enemy is stomping them, making it explode, or something like that. They can damage you if you don't have 100 resilience. Now, at this point, you're going to attack the boss until they die. Be careful here because the boss can output a lot of damage, and when all of the enemies are dead, they'll respawn and they can gang up on you really quickly. There's 3 bosses in total, which means you need 6 flags. The second boss in particular, which is a void shielded enemy, is very tough and can push you off the edge. The key here with this is to survive even if it takes longer. Don't die to dumb stuff like Cabal shields or having backpacks explode. The biggest thing here is just to practice your movement in the Nightmare Realm and not get lost. Use that map as a reference point. All right, folks, time to talk about the final encounter, and this is the one that drives a lot of people crazy. They feel like they die to random stuff all the time, but this challenge is very doable as long as you know what to look for. We're going to be using some specific mods here. Again, these are very general mods, and they are helpful, but they're not required. If you don't have them, you might have to do more damage phases, but the strategy will still be the same. The mods we're going to be using are very similar to the beginning, almost exactly the same. We're going to be using Melee Wellmaker. We're going to be using High Energy Fire and Font of Might and Elemental Charge specifically for this build. If you don't have those, again, it's not required, but they are very helpful and they will help you get the damage you need for this. For damage as well, if you have the Loreley Splendor Helm, it's going to be very helpful for the damage phase, for staying alive, but also creating spot spots which can help you to do a little bit more damage when the time comes. You can cast barricades, create sunspots, and that will have improved restoration effects, which is really helpful to stay alive in the boss damage phase. Next up, we're going to be talking about the weapons. It's pretty simple. Using Laments plus some combination of a solar weapon and a fusion. I use the combination of the Calus multi-tool as well as a Riptide with Chill Clip, and it worked amazingly for me. Chill Clip is very, very solid for this, and a lot of people are getting Riptides if they're playing Crucible. Now, you'll notice that I'm not using a Loosened Blade build, and there is a reason for that. We're going to be using the Ember of Torches here to make ourselves radiant when we're doing damage. And right now there is a bug. Something is interfering with the Lucent Blade with the sword. So a lot of people have been using sword builds. Instead, we're going to be using Font of Might, which will stack with Radiant as well as High Energy Fire. That will work to get us a little bit more damage. It can get you a 3-phase if you execute it perfectly. Lament has some other advantages as well, which we'll talk about here in a second, but let's talk about the encounter itself. To access all the bells, to go to the Nightmare Realm, kill the Bell Keepers. And my number one tip is to blow up the backpacks before they can blow you up. Use a fusion rifle to disintegrate them or shoot them with a gun and have them explode. This specifically helped me save my runs multiple times. The reason why they wouldn't explode on me, I got to choose when they exploded. Mrs. Asphyxia has put together another really good map. Here we can see the different sides where all the different symbols are. You're going to look in the middle of the room. There's going to be 2 symbols. You'll need to grab 2 of those standards, deposit them, go back to the Nightmare Realm, get the other 2. And once you've deposited 4 total, you can move on to potentially getting damage on Caiatl. We'll talk about how that works here. To access the damage phase, let's locate those flags and get them. You'll see the symbols on the ground in the normal realm. We'll memorize the locations using the map. There is nothing in this room in here that can help you stay alive. Now, let's talk about how to deal with these Bell Keepers. Use your hammer to become radiant. Bonk the dogs. It will help keep you alive, and because you're radiant with a fusion rifle, it will allow you to one-shot many of the enemies, even if they're majors. Ignore the giant Colossus on the side and then just focus on the dogs and the Bell Keepers. It's also a good time to knock out any backpacks if you can. Once you come back to the normal zone, kill most of the ads and then dunk the flags and free up the Bell of Conquest. Here's a quick tip for you. If you can dunk 2 of them very quickly, you won't get any extra ads to spawn. So one nice thing about this is you can actually use Lament to block, and that will keep you from taking a lot of damage. Another thing you can also do is use a healing grenade or use your super and then dunk while you're inside your super, and that will help you to stay alive if you need to. At any point, if you need to fall back and get your life back and kill a couple of enemies, do that. The biggest thing I've seen when people struggle with this is that they get flustered. They feel like it's just too much going on. And the truth is if you just chill and take your time, you will be fine. Make sure you're mostly clear, get your ammo and your super and your abilities ready for a solid damage phase, knock out the backpacks, and you'll be good. Just play your life. Don't rush, and you will be in a good position to do damage. Once you're ready for the damage phase, shoot the chain, but then immediately shoot one of the other bells and go early to the Nightmare Realm. This is going to give you time to take out some of the Bell Keepers before she even spawns in. I'm going to show you this damage phase at 50% speed so you know everything that's going on here. She just spawned in, and I'm going to be looking to which direction she moves. I'm basically keeping an eye on her while killing Bell Keepers as quickly as possible, and I'm going to bait out the stomp. That gets her to stop, and that gives you more time to kill the Bell Keepers. You can do this multiple times if you need to. See how much time I have here in this position? At this point, I knock out the bell. She's going to stomp here, and the other awesome thing about using Lament is that if she bashes you here, you can actually sword swipe and stay close to her and not take really any damage. The snipers are going to be coming after you, and if you need to, you can pop a barricade if you'd like. If you're wearing your Lorelei Splendor helm, you've got a sunspot there, which will help you get your restoration back and help you stay alive, as well as do lots of damage. Once you see that your timer is done with that phase, start immediately moving to the next area, but stop for a second around the corner of the pillar. If she's in the middle, you can do this as well, but you're basically looking just to get those Bell Keepers weak for just a minute. Come back to this corner and get her to stomp. If you're around the corner here, you'll see I'm taking no damage from her. I'm actually just taking a second, getting her to stomp so I can bait that out, knock out the Bell Keepers, and then it doesn't matter which direction she goes. I'll be ready to go. I'll bait out another stomp here, move over to this position, pop a barricade so I get a sunspot, get my restoration because the snipers have got me in a pretty good position. And then as soon as she gets close enough, I'm going to pop the bell, and now I'm good for damage. Now, I'm going to try and hit here with my hammer, and I'm going to miss. This shows you that even if you make a mistake, it's possible for you to recover and stay alive. Get that hammer back, hit her so you're radiant again, do whatever damage you need to, and you're good. The key thing here is to make consistent, simple, easy damage phases while staying alive. Survivability is the most important thing. There's nothing wrong with going for a faster phase or a one phase or anything else like that once you've gotten the initial solo flawless clear and you understand the encounter. Once more here, I'm popping my rift here to bait out the stomp. I've got her in position. I'm going to hit the bell, and now I'm free to do damage. I use my hammer. I'm radiant. I'm keened. Everything else is ready to go, and I'm ready to do damage. Now, when you charge up your Lament Sword, try to get 3 heavy attacks and then normal swipes to get your charge back. There's some disagreement about what the fastest way to proc DPS with the sword is, but I found that most people say 3 heavy swipes after you charge it, and you're good. At this point, if you want to pop your hammers just to stay alive, if you're in a tough position, you can do that too. I just wanted to see how much damage I could do to Caiatl just with my super and keeping her in the Nightmare Realm a little bit longer. All you need to do now is rinse and repeat that multiple times to kill her, and you're set. Again, the biggest thing is just consistent damage phases where you can keep yourself alive, use your hammer and hit the dogs to get sunspots and to get your life back. Blow up those backpacks when you get a chance. Use the map and memorize where you're at, and try to always be thinking about where the symbols are when you're in the Nightmare Realm. Take a second, get plenty of time, and don't feel rushed. You have lots of time in here using a fusion rifle and becoming radiant to one-shot any of these enemies, and disintegrating them either with a stasis or any kind of elemental fusion is going to be huge. I've got 20 seconds here, plenty of time to shoot the dogs, look around for backpacks, make sure that I'm clear, and make sure that I don't die on the next damage phase. If you're needing any help on the Duality Dungeon, come on over to twitch.tv/manodestra. I'd help tons of people with PvE content inside of Destiny. I've helped thousands of people do dungeons, raids, grandmasters, and more. So stop on over if you have questions or you just want to join a great community. Our Discord link is down below. If you have questions or comments specifically on something on this video, or you want to share something that you did for a solo flawless run, but with this guide, any solo player who wants to take on the challenge and anybody who has access to this accessible loot can solo flawless the Duality Dungeon. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Good hunting, Guardians. I will see you next time in the universe of Destiny.